Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Forsaken Joe. Grab a coffee or something stronger, because this one's a gut punch. We were slow dancing. The jazz band had just started playing this soft, old tune that Clara always loved. Something about that song makes her close her eyes and sway like she's somewhere else. It was her birthday. Everyone was watching us, smiling, cheering. I remember thinking, finally, I did something right. She's happy. But then, halfway through the song, she leaned close and whispered in my ear, "I'll be right back." And just like that, she was gone. I didn't think much of it at first. Maybe she went to check something, maybe to take a call. But after 10 minutes, then 20, the pit in my stomach started gnawing at me. I excused myself from the crowd and started looking for her. No Clara in the bathroom. No Clara outside by the parking lot. It was like she'd evaporated. When she finally returned, almost an hour later, she looked different. Her hair was messy, her lipstick faint like she'd wiped it away in a rush. I tried to ask where she'd been, but she just laughed, kissed my cheek, and said, "You worry too much, Lenny." And then I saw him, a man standing by the entrance watching her, not watching us, watching her. The way his eyes lingered on her sent chills down my spine. She caught me staring at him, and her face drained of color. That's when I knew something was wrong, terribly wrong. When the song ended and Clara returned to the dance floor, it felt like nothing had happened, at least to everyone else. She smiled, laughed, hugged her friends, all while I stood there with this knot tightening in my chest. That man was still there. He wasn't mingling, wasn't holding a drink, just leaning against the gate like he had every reason to be watching her. I tried to convince myself I was being paranoid. Maybe he was a friend of someone at the party. Maybe I just hadn't seen him earlier. But when Clara noticed me watching him, her face told me everything I needed to know. Something about her expression, this flash of guilt or fear, something she didn't hide fast enough. It was like a silent confession. I walked over to her, trying to play it cool. "Who's that guy?" I asked, nodding toward the gate. She didn't even glance at him, just shook her head and said, "I don't know, maybe someone from the restaurant." Her tone was casual, but her hand gripped her wine glass too tightly. I've known her long enough to spot when she's lying. The man left a few minutes later, disappearing into the parking lot like a shadow. But Clara didn't seem relieved. She was quiet, distant, like part of her mind was somewhere else entirely. I tried to ask her again what was going on, but she brushed it off with this fake smile, whispering, "Please, don't ruin tonight." By midnight, the party had died down, and I was cleaning up the tables while Clara chatted with her friends. She seemed fine, almost too fine, and that only made me feel worse. I kept glancing at the gate, expecting the man to reappear. I couldn't stop thinking about where she'd gone for that hour. What could she possibly be doing that she couldn't tell me about? On the drive home, she fell asleep in the passenger seat, her head leaning against the window. I stared at her reflection in the glass, and for the first time in years, I felt like I didn't know the woman sitting next to me. That image of her whispering to someone near the gate kept replaying in my mind, and I knew I wouldn't be able to sleep until I found out the truth. The next morning felt heavier than usual, like the air in the house was thicker. Clara acted as if nothing had happened. She woke up before me, made coffee, and hummed while scrolling through her phone, as if last night's strange disappearance had been a dream. But I couldn't shake the image of her standing near that gate, whispering to someone in the shadows. I tried to play along, pretending everything was fine. But the more I looked at her, the more I noticed little things I'd somehow ignored before. Her phone never left her side, not even when she went to the bathroom. When she saw me glance at it on the counter, she snatched it up with a casual laugh, saying something about work emails. But it wasn't work. She'd left her job months ago. After breakfast, she said she needed to run some errands and left the house. The second the door closed behind her, I felt my stomach twist. Something inside me screamed that I needed to look for answers. I started small, checking the trash. I know how pathetic that sounds, but desperation makes you do things you swore you'd never do. And there it was, a crumpled receipt from a hotel just 15 minutes from our house. 2 nights ago. My hands started shaking. I could barely read the print. It wasn't just the receipt. It was the name on the room booking, not Clara's, not mine. It was under a man's name I didn't recognize. It felt like the floor was falling out from under me. When she came home, I couldn't even look her in the eyes. My voice cracked when I asked her how her errands went. She kissed my cheek and smiled like nothing was wrong. I wanted to scream, to confront her right there, but I didn't. Instead, I just sat there, staring at my coffee like an idiot, nodding and forcing small talk. Later that night, while she was in the shower, I finally broke. I unlocked her phone using her old passcode. She still doesn't know I remember it. My heart was pounding like I was about to commit a crime. I didn't find any obvious messages or calls. It was clean, too clean, almost like she had deleted everything. That's when I found the hidden album in her photos, the one you have to dig for. And my world collapsed. The photos weren't anything explicit, but they didn't need to be. A few blurry selfies with her and that same man from the party. His arm draped around her waist like he'd done it 1,000 times. Her smile, not the polite one she gives strangers, but the kind of smile she used to give me when we were still falling in love. I didn't say anything that night. I just lay next to her, wide awake, while she slept peacefully like nothing was wrong. My mind was racing, replaying every moment from the past month. I felt like I was living with a stranger who was pretending to be my wife. The next day I decided I couldn't just sit there drowning in my thoughts. I needed to know the truth, even if it ripped me apart. Clara told me she was going to visit her sister, but I didn't believe her for a second. She left the house around noon, wearing that same red dress she had on at her birthday party. The dress that now made my stomach twist whenever I saw it. I waited for a few minutes after she drove off, then grabbed my keys and followed her car, staying far enough behind so she wouldn't notice. I felt ridiculous, like some desperate character in a bad drama, but the truth is, my heart was pounding so hard I could barely keep my hands steady on the wheel. She didn't go to her sister's house, not even close. Instead, she drove across town to the same hotel from the receipt I'd found in the trash. She parked in the far corner of the lot and sat there for a moment, as if she were rehearsing something in her head. Then, a black SUV pulled up beside her. And out stepped the same man I saw at the party, the man who had been watching her. He walked straight to her car, opened the door, and kissed her like it was the most natural thing in the world. I gripped the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. I know I should have stormed out right then, confronted them both. But I froze. Instead, I watched as they walked together into the hotel lobby. They didn't even look around to see if someone might notice. My wife, my Clara, didn't look like she was sneaking around. She looked like she belonged with him. That cut deeper than anything else. I sat there for what felt like hours, staring at the entrance, waiting for them to come out. I thought about leaving, about pretending I hadn't seen any of this, but my mind wouldn't let me. Every second that passed, I felt more like I was being erased from my own life. Finally, after nearly an hour, they came out. She was laughing, touching his arm, the way she used to do with me when we were still dating. I felt like I was watching a version of her I didn't know existed. When she drove home later, I followed her again. I was shaking, my chest tight, but I said nothing. I didn't want her to know yet that I'd seen everything. That night, I pretended to be asleep when she climbed into bed next to me. She curled up, scrolling through her phone like nothing happened. I could feel this silent storm building in my chest, ready to explode, but I held it in. Not yet. Not until I figured out who this man was and why she had risked everything for him. The next morning, I made a plan. I needed to find out who this guy was, and I needed to know how long this had been going on. I started with the hotel. I called them, pretending to be him, asking about my recent booking. I didn't get much, but I got a name. And it wasn't someone I recognized, not a coworker, not a family friend. It was like this guy had just appeared out of nowhere. That was when I realized something terrifying. Maybe this wasn't just about cheating. Maybe there was something bigger, something I wasn't seeing yet. The next morning, I couldn't shake the image of that man's hand on Clara's back. It burned in my mind like a scar I couldn't scrub out. I spent the entire night staring at the ceiling, going through every memory, every laugh, every fight, trying to pinpoint the moment she slipped away from me. But the truth was, I didn't even know who I was angry at anymore. Her, him, or myself for being so blind. I had the name from the hotel booking, Owen Carver. It didn't ring a single bell. I didn't tell Clara I knew, of course. Instead, I spent most of the day glued to my laptop, digging through every corner of the internet. At first, nothing. No social media profiles, no LinkedIn, no photos. It was like the guy didn't exist. Until I stumbled upon a thread in a local community forum, a blurry photo of a man standing outside a real estate office captioned, "Anyone know this guy? Saw him around town lately. Something about him feels off." It was him, no question. Same jawline, same sharp eyes that lingered too long on my wife. and as I read the comments below, my blood ran cold. People were saying he wasn't from here, that he'd been showing up at events and restaurants, always with different women. Some claimed he was connected to shady business deals. Someone even mentioned he might be running scams, luring people into something they couldn't escape. I don't know why, but that sent me spiraling. This wasn't just an affair anymore. This could be something dangerous. And Clara, what if she didn't even know what she was getting into? Or worse, what if she did? When Clara came home that evening, I tried to look normal, but I couldn't stop staring at her phone in her hand. She kept smiling at me, but her eyes never really met mine. I noticed she kept checking her messages, tilting the screen away just enough that I couldn't see. My heart was pounding so loud, I was sure she could hear it. Later that night, when she went to shower, I grabbed her phone again. I told myself I'd only check for his name, just one look. But there was nothing. No calls, no texts. Just a note in her hidden folder. A single line that read, "Don't call me unless it's safe." My hands shook so badly I almost dropped the phone. The next morning, I decided to follow her again. She told me she was meeting a friend for brunch. I didn't believe her. I tailed her through the narrow downtown streets, trying to keep my car 2 or 3 lengths behind. She parked in a quiet street I'd never seen her go to before and walked straight into a coffee shop. And then, as if she'd been expecting him, Owen appeared from around the corner. What I saw next still makes me sick. They sat at a table near the window, laughing like they'd known each other for years. He leaned in, whispering something, and she smiled that smile, the one that used to be mine. I gripped the steering wheel, trying not to lose control, but then I noticed something strange. A small envelope slid across the table from him to her. She tucked it into her bag without even looking at it. It wasn't just a casual meeting. I couldn't go inside. I just sat in my car watching, while every part of me screamed to do something. I didn't sleep that night, not even a little. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that envelope sliding across the table, Clara's hand gripping it like it contained the answer to some terrible secret I wasn't allowed to know. I kept telling myself it might be nothing, a business thing, a favor for a friend, anything but what my gut was screaming. But deep down, I knew better. Something about Owen's presence wasn't just wrong, it was dangerous. I could feel it. The next morning, I made a decision that even now makes me question my sanity. I wasn't going to sit back and watch my marriage disintegrate while some stranger took my place. I was going to confront him, not Clara. Not yet. I needed to know who this guy really was before I accused her of anything. So I waited. I knew she had plans to meet him again because I'd seen a message pop up on her phone screen. Just a brief preview before she swiped it away. Oh, same place tomorrow? It was him. The following day, I parked across from that same coffee shop before either of them arrived. My hands were shaking so badly I had to grip the steering wheel until my fingers hurt. When Owen finally showed up, he wasn't with Clara. He was alone, standing outside the shop, scrolling through his phone. I didn't think. I just got out of my car, walked straight up to him and said, "We need to talk." He looked up at me, confused at first, then amused, like he was expecting this. He didn't even ask who I was. He knew. "You're Clara's husband," he said, his voice calm and casual, like we were 2 old friends catching up. I felt my face go hot. "What the hell do you think you're doing with my wife?" I asked, my voice low but shaking. I wanted to punch him, but something about the way he smiled made me freeze. It wasn't a mocking smile, it was knowing. "Your wife?" he said, tilting his head slightly. "She's not exactly yours anymore, is she?" Those words hit harder than any punch. I grabbed his jacket and pushed him back against the wall, my anger boiling over. "What are you talking about? Who are you?" I demanded. But instead of fighting back, he just laughed, quietly, like he knew something I didn't. "You really don't know, do you?" he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "She came to me, Lenny, not the other way around. She's been keeping secrets from you for a long time, and if you're smart, you'll stop digging before you find something you can't handle." For a second, I was too stunned to speak. It wasn't just the words. It was the way he said my name, like he'd been studying me, like he knew my life better than I did. I wanted to ask what he meant, but he just straightened his jacket, gave me one last smile, and walked away like nothing had happened. I stood there, frozen, my mind racing. How did he know me? Why did Clara go to him? And what secrets was she hiding that I couldn't handle? I drove home in silence, my thoughts screaming louder than any words I could form. That night, Clara acted normal again. Too normal. She laughed at my lame jokes, kissed me on the cheek, even suggested we watch a movie together. But every time I looked at her, all I could see was that envelope, that man's smug smile, and the feeling that something much bigger was going on here. Something that was about to destroy me completely. The night after confronting Owen, I felt like I was living inside someone else's skin. Nothing seemed real anymore. Clara's laughter sounded fake. Her touch felt rehearsed, and every word out of her mouth seemed like part of some cruel script I wasn't supposed to read. I didn't sleep again. I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, wondering who I'd married and how many lies I'd swallowed over the years without even noticing. By the time morning came, I was trembling with this sick energy, the kind that makes you do things you swore you'd never do. I knew I had to follow them again. This time, I wasn't just looking for answers. I was ready for whatever I'd find, even if it broke me. Clara told me she was going to run errands, the same vague excuse as always, but her voice cracked when she said it, and I could tell she was lying. I waited until her car disappeared down the road before grabbing my keys. This time, I stayed closer, just close enough to see her every turn, every hesitation. She wasn't heading anywhere near the grocery store or the mall. Instead, she took a winding back road that led out of town, toward a place I hadn't been in years, an abandoned industrial park by the old railway line. She parked near a crumbling warehouse, and for a long moment, she just sat there, like she was waiting for something. Then, a black SUV rolled up. Owen. I felt my chest tighten like I'd been kicked in the ribs. They exchanged a quick look before she got out of her car, and then, without hesitation, she hugged him. It wasn't the kind of hug you give a friend. It was slow, lingering, like the world could vanish around them, and they wouldn't care. I stayed in my car, hidden behind a row of rusted shipping containers, watching as they went inside the warehouse. My hands were shaking, my throat dry. What the hell were they doing in a place like that? I waited for what felt like hours, my mind running wild with every scenario. Drugs, money, blackmail, anything. I couldn't take it anymore. I needed to see for myself. I slipped out of my car and crept toward the warehouse, keeping to the shadows. The side door was slightly ajar, and I pushed it open just enough to peek inside. What I saw made my blood run cold. Clara was standing with Owen, holding that same envelope I'd seen before, but this time, it wasn't just an envelope. There were papers spread out on a dusty table, along with stacks of cash. My wife, the woman I thought I knew, was counting money like she'd done it 100 times before, her face serious, almost unrecognizable. Then I heard them talking. Owen's voice was low and calm. "We have to do this carefully. If he suspects anything, it's over." Clara nodded, her voice sharper than I'd ever heard it. "He doesn't know. He can't know. He's too fragile." I nearly stumbled backward. Were they talking about me? My heart felt like it was trying to claw its way out of my chest. I wanted to barge in, scream at them, demand answers, but I couldn't move. I was paralyzed, watching the life I thought I had unravel in front of me. I stayed there for what must have been another 15 minutes, hidden in the shadows, listening to bits of their conversation. There was talk of plans, of the right time, of making sure it looks natural. My stomach turned with every word. Finally, when they left, I barely made it back to my car before collapsing into the driver's seat, my hands shaking so badly I could barely turn the key. Driving home felt like sleepwalking through a nightmare. I couldn't even look at Clara that evening when she came back. She smiled at me, asked if I wanted takeout, acted like nothing had happened. And I just stood there, nodding, trying not to lose my mind. I don't know what I'm going to do. But I know this isn't just about an affair anymore. Something bigger is happening, and I'm part of it, whether I want to be or not. I didn't want to sleep that night because I was terrified of what the morning might bring. I sat at the kitchen table with my thoughts tangled like a knot I couldn't untie, convinced my marriage was over, that Clara wasn't the person I thought she was. But somewhere between my third cup of coffee and the sunrise, I decided I couldn't live in the shadows anymore. I needed the truth, no matter how much it hurt. When Clara came into the kitchen, I didn't even give her the chance to play it cool. "I followed you," I said, my voice shaking. "I saw you with him. I saw the money. I heard you. So tell me, Clara, what's going on?" For a long moment, she just stared at me, her face pale and her mouth slightly open. Then, to my shock, she laughed. Not in a cruel way, but like someone who's been holding in a secret too long. "Lenny, you really don't know?" she said, sitting down across from me. That man, Owen, he's my brother. I blinked, certain I'd misheard her. You're what? She took my hand, tears brimming in her eyes. I didn't tell you because I didn't want you to get involved. Owen was in a bad situation, Lenny. He borrowed money from some dangerous people, and I've been helping him pay it back. That's what the cash was, not some affair. I didn't want to scare you, and I didn't want you to think less of me. I thought I could fix it without you ever knowing. I sat there, speechless, the weight of every paranoid thought I'd had crashing over me. All this time, I'd been preparing myself for the worst, imagining betrayal, secrets, lies, and the truth was that she'd been trying to protect me. My eyes burned as I tried to process it all. So, you're not leaving me? You're not with him? She smiled through her tears and squeezed my hand. Oh, Lenny, I love you. I was just trying to keep this mess from touching our life. I should have told you from the start, and I'm sorry for making you feel like I was hiding something from you. We spent the entire day talking, really talking, something we hadn't done in months. For the first time, I felt like we were on the same side again. We made a plan together to help Owen legally, to make sure this debt didn't destroy him or us. It wasn't easy, but by the end of that week, it felt like a weight had been lifted from both of us. Looking back, I realize how close I came to losing everything just because I was too scared to ask the hard questions. It's strange, but this whole nightmare brought us closer. Clara told me she hadn't seen me fight for something in a long time, and maybe, in some twisted way, this was the wake-up call we both needed. So, what do you guys think? Would you have reacted the same way I did, or would you have confronted her sooner? Have you ever been in a situation where you thought the worst, only to find out the truth was completely different? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your stories. And don't forget to subscribe to Forsaken Joe for more real-life stories like this one.